In this next scenario, the agent Tom is speaking with a buyer who fell in love with a property he saw at an open house the brokerage held recently.
Hey, Russell, this is Tom with JKL Realty. We met at my open house last weekend. I'd like to get your feedback on 456 Main and see if you got any questions.
I'm glad you called. I was going to call you today. I loved the house, especially how the owner extended the deck because it means less lawn to mow. I think I would like to make an offer on it. Can you help me with that?
My company is working with the seller, but we can also represent you if you'd like. There's several options for this. And before we get into any specifics, I need to ask if you already have a signed representation agreement with any other company. Have you been working with any other real estate agent?
No, I've been doing a lot of research online and going to open houses, but I haven't picked anyone to work with yet.
Great. I'd love to help you buy this house. Idaho allows several different options for representation, and I have a brochure the Idaho Real Estate Commission publishes outlining all the different options. I'll explain them to you now, and when we meet later, I'll give you a copy of the brochure to sign, just showing that I went over all the options with you. One of the options you have is to remain a customer of the brokerage. We can still work together, and I can give you information on the property, but I can't give you advice or negotiate for you, and I'm not bound to keep anything you tell me confidential. So, you should only share information you'd be comfortable telling the seller. I'd assist you with filling out the contract and other necessary acts throughout the transaction, and I would do so with honesty and care. Your earnest money would be properly accounted for, and I'd have to tell you about any adverse material facts.
What do you mean by adverse material facts?
Well, that means I'd have to let you know if I know something about the property that might deter you from buying it. Like if the house flooded a few years ago and the seller covered all the resulting mold with paint instead of properly treating it.
That makes sense. I would want to know if you found something out about the property that I didn't know.
Now, the second option is for my brokerage to represent both you and the seller as clients. In this case, we'd enter into limited dual agency without assigned agents. And the nice thing about this is that I can keep information you share with me confidential. That includes things like how much you're willing to pay if the seller rejects your initial offer and wants to counter at a higher price than you offered. So let's pretend a house is listed at $317,000. Let's say hypothetically that you offer $310,000. The seller wants to counter with $312,000, but I know you'd pay $322,000. I couldn't tell them you absolutely love the house and would pay more than asking price. Or tell you they have to be out of the state in 2 months and would take less just to close the deal. But I could tell you both that the neighborhood comps run about 316. So with option 2, our company can't favor one of you over the other because everyone in the company is working for both you and the seller equally. This gives you a higher level of service than working with us as a customer.
But negotiation is the part I really want to have my agent help me with. Is there any way you can represent me and root for me, even though you represent the seller too?
Yes, there is. The third option is for the brokerage to represent you and the seller using 2 different real estate agents. This is called limited dual agency with assigned agents. If you chose this option, I'd refer you to one of the other agents in our office that can do a great job for you, and I'd keep working with the seller. And if this happens, the agent working with you is able to promote your best interests, even if they conflict with the seller's best interest. I do the same for the seller. We will both maintain the confidentiality of our own respective clients.
I like the third option. What do we need to do next?
Would you like to meet at my office later? I can introduce you to an agent I think would work well for you. You can sign the agency disclosure brochure receipt and a representation agreement so the other agent can help you write up the offer.
Sure. I've got an appointment, but I think I can be there by 3.
Sounds great, Russell. See you then.
As you can see, the agent handled the delicate road of limited dual agency well. While some agents find it easy to balance working with both parties of the transaction, it doesn't hurt to check with your broker for guidance. Before beginning to work with a buyer or seller, it is essential the agent ask the individual if they are currently represented by another broker. Idaho Code 54-2054-4 strictly prohibits interference with the contractual relationship between a broker and a client. Explain the differences in agency representation so they understand how the agency relationship is limited in a limited dual agency transaction. In limited dual agency, the broker represents each client equally. If problems occur between the buyer and seller, the broker remains neutral and can help facilitate an agreement between the two parties.